I'm Rob,
And I'm Nate.
and welcome back to Rob and Nate Record a Podcast. This is week 4 of our Ron Howard theme month. And this week for our selection, we watched the 2020 film Hillbilly Elegy, which, if I'm not mistaken, this was a direct-to-Netflix release, correct?
It was, yes. And it's based on the memoir of J.D. Vance by the same title that came out in 2016 to much acclaim.
Do you know much about the book?
This is what I know of the book. So when Donald Trump won the presidency in 2016, the same year this book came out, this was touted in, I guess, liberal circles as the book to read to understand the Trump voter.
Okay.
And I can get, if you are, a Trump supporter, and you hear that the liberal elite feel that to understand you, they need to read a book with hillbilly in the title, then that might feel kind of condescending.
Yeah.
And some of the things that I had been kind of curious about the book, but when it comes to the movie, it didn't have great press. This was not well received, and I'm sure we'll get into that in more detail.
Yeah.
So I was not expecting much out of this movie. I had other people talk to me about it, and I was just kind of dismissive of it from what I had heard. I was quite pleasantly surprised.
So now this is precisely why I wanted to conduct this this recording, because Nate has been dreading this week.
Yeah, I've said multiple times I am not looking forward to watching this one.
Yeah, since we planned this, Nate has not been looking forward to this. And so I wanted to get your reaction.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's your first reaction. My first reaction is expletives. Ron Howard knows the human condition.
Yeah.
He really understands the human condition and has the ability to capture it on screen.
It's been interesting, and we'll probably get back to this, watching these films and watching them in chronological order. He got better as a director.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He very clearly did.
Yeah. Yeah, and it makes me want to go back and watch some of the Ron Howard titles that I haven't gotten to yet, but that I've wanted to see. One in particular is In the Heart of the Sea. Mm-hmm. He's done a couple others that I've wanted to see. I'm going to have to go back and watch him. I need to make more of a point of watching Ron Howard. He is clearly a very capable director. He puts in the time and effort to understand his source material, and he has an ability to translate that on screen that I'm thoroughly impressed with, especially after our last two movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hillbilly Elegy. What other thoughts do you have on this?
So I'm going to skip our usual order a little bit here to just say this movie has a metric score of 38% and a Rotten Tomatoes score of 25%.
I don't understand that.
Now, I knew vaguely this, but I haven't really looked into any of the I haven't read a review of this movie. These people, Ron Howard, Amy Adams, Glen Close, the two actors that play J.D. Vance are very good. Haley Bennet, Freida Pinto, it was nice to see her. It had been a while since I'd seen her in something. These people thought they were making a good movie that people would like.
Yeah.
And they just got to be kind of flummoxed. It's like, what is it about this film that turned off so many people? And I guess the thought that comes to my mind is infamiliarity with the subject matter and thinking that this is a lazy kind of trope version of it. You and I both lived for 2 years in the southern United States.
Near the Kentucky-Virginia border for a portion of that time. Yeah.
We know people like this.
Yes.
We have some experience with this. And the opening sequence where they're vacationing in Kentucky in 1997 at the place where the Vances came from ancestrally, and they're driving down those streets, and you're seeing the people hanging out in their dilapidated house. Like, I know this. I know these people, and I know these drama people. Like, this family is full of drama. We met people like this. This is real to me, and I can understand that that for some people it's like this is a stereotype. This is a
construct. This
isn't real. And it's like, no, this is totally real.
Yeah.
And obviously it's real because it's a true story, but it's realer to me than it might be to somebody writing a movie review for the LA Times.
Yeah. I agree with that. I don't know if that is the reason that this had such a poor reception entirely. I can't help but think there's other things at play that deal with the year 2020 and some other events within that year that I don't know that we necessarily want to get into.
Yeah. Well, and I am looking forward to, after this, doing some reading of these and trying to figure out what it is that people saw in this film that's so different, because usually I'm more or less with the critics on most films. There's not that often that I love something they hate or hate something they loved, but it does really happen. Like this. It does happen.
Yeah. Since we've already bucked our typical order, I'm just gonna get it out of the way. For me, this is 9 out of 10 stars.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I liked this film a lot. I guess if I'm giving it 9 out of 10, I'm giving it 4 out of 4. This film, I was hooked pretty early on in this film.
I was surprised how hooked I was. I took very few notes. I looked at my phone very little. I was with the movie pretty much the whole time.
Yeah.
I would give it, by the way, 8 out of 10, and I'd give it 3.5 out of 4.
Yeah. So we're pretty close on this. You mentioned it's Rotten Tomatoes. IMDb, its aggregate score is 6.7 stars. So it fares better on IMDb than it does on Rotten Tomatoes. The only thing that had me a little bit off guard going into this is one of the other Ron Howard movies we watched this month had like a 6.8 aggregate score on IMDb. And so I was like, okay, I don't know. This could either be really good or it could be falling the other way. Yeah, I guess we should get into the plot of this film. We have Glen Close plays Mama, who is the grandmother, the matriarch. We have Amy Adams, who plays Bev, who is the mother. J.D. Vance is Bev's son.
Now this storyline goes back and forth between two principal timelines, one in the late 90s and one as a framing story in 2011.
Yeah.
So we have multiple actors that play J.D. Vance. Bagriel Basso plays him as a man in his late 20s, and the younger him is played by
Owen Otzalos. And you have J.D.'s sister Lindsay is played by Haley Bennet, as was mentioned. J.D. Vance's then girlfriend is a gal named Usha, played by Freida Pinto. Bo Hopkins plays Papa.
He's not in it that much.
No, he's not in the film a lot, but he's worth mentioning. And this film follows this family kind of through some ups and downs of the family, and primarily following JD as he goes through some trials of life and then eventually learns a few things and focuses himself after a conversation with his grandma that basically says, look, you're this family's hope.
Yeah.
You have to do something.
It is this family story and about the tragedy of this family and also the hope and growth in this family. Though there are the two principal timelines, we do see flashbacks from earlier. We see Mama moving to Ohio from Kentucky as a pregnant 18-year-old with her husband, who turns out to be abusive. She sets him on fire at Christmas time, sometime when the girls are young, and they end up living in separate houses on the same street.
Yeah.
Because they love each other, but they just can't live together. I had grandparents kind of similar, that at the end of her life, they were living in the same retirement complex, but in different units, because it's like they would see each other daily, but they couldn't live together.
Yeah. And
so this is that kind of situation. And then the tragedy of Bev, who was the valedictorian of her class of 400 in Middletown, Ohio, who, as Mama says, she eventually just gave up. And I totally see Amy Adams as, she comes across as one of these kind of people that we met, that she has the look right, she has the mannerisms right, that the tragedy of this person that just simply cannot transcend the boundaries of their circumstance. And it is the story of the hope, because Mama, was like, I had this hope for Bev, that didn't work out, but you, JD, you need to succeed because you're the hope of this family. I'm not going to live forever.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to take care of this family when I'm gone.
But it's an incident where Mama ends up in the hospital and JD asks her if she's going to die. That's what it takes for her to actually see the circumstances for what they are, and to step up. And it's difficult for her, but she makes a lot of sacrifices to set JD up to where he can actually have a chance to succeed.
So there's these moments. There's these two central moments. The one when Mema is in the hospital, and the young JD, he's with his parental situation, he is on the verge of making wrong choices with the people he hangs out with, and it comes home to Mema. It's like I got to stop this. And so she gets out of her bed and she removes, I'm sure this is partially for dramatic license, but she removes the attachments for the medical equipment, and she just heads to her daughter's home and basically says, I'm taking the kid.
Yeah.
And the daughter's in one of a series of relationships that don't really work out. That, I'm married. Oh, you married Matt? No. I married Ken. Who the hell is Ken?
Yeah.
But we're with Ken, and Mema takes JD with her, and he's a bit of a brat for a while, but there's this thing about this graphing calculator. He needs a graphing calculator that's $87, and he's failing in math class because he can't do math because he doesn't have the graph calculator. And he tries to steal one when his mom says, you just got to get one. It's like, and she's like, not that way, don't steal stuff. And she buys him the graphing calculator, and she has to give up her medication for that month to be able to get it, and they're feeding each other off of Meals on Wheels. They're having to share one because Meals on Wheels doesn't know there's two people there, and that moment just it hits him. I need to be better, and he 180s, and he starts helping out and going the extra mile, and he gets his life on track.
And he gets a part-time job to help out.
Part-time job. He ends up getting the highest algebra score in his class when he was, got a D before. It changes his life, and this movie is about really those two moments.
Yeah.
And the family and how you can set a family on track. And at the end of the film, when it showed those photos and videos of the real people, I freaking teared up.
Yeah.
To see this real family and to learn what happened to them after 2011, and that Bev's still sober. And the sister is 22 years married with her husband and the 3 kids.
And they're bucking the trends of the examples that have been set for them generationally.
And that's something I have some tangential understanding of and I want to go into. But this is an inspiring story.
Yeah.
It's Easter, damn it. Not that was a Bev line, but you were cracking up at Mema lines all throughout this movie.
There is this, and I have loved and admired and been frustrated by this dichotomy for 2 decades now, of some of these Midwestern people who will, I guess that's not Midwestern, that's further east, but these people in this region of the country who simultaneously, like, before she says it's Easter, damn it, she says something about, about Jesus. So, it's Jesus' birthday, or something like that. Or
I don't care if it's baby Jesus on the phone. You get in here.
No, it was a praise thing.
Oh, okay.
So it was literally in the same breath, she's praising Jesus, and then simultaneously takes the Lord's name in vain.
Yeah.
In the same breath, this dichotomy that exists, there's elements of that I respect, there's elements of that I admire, there's elements of that I miss, and at the same time the dichotomy and hypocrisy in it has baffled me.
And this gets, and we don't want to get too political, but this gets into the Trumpian aspect of this contradiction that people outside of this Trump base see in the Trump supporter, that is coherent internally. I don't fully understand how it is, but I accept that they got to feel that it is. I can see, having seen this, something of that, something of and there's a number of sequences or moments of this in the film, the rage at circumstances and where they are in life. And I can see how that rage wants an avatar and wants to fight back. And I can see how that plays into certain political things going on.
Some of the other aspects of this that were kind of fascinating to me is like the substance abuse that's portrayed in the Bev character. Everyone at this point in time, substance abuse has touched everybody's life. Everyone's family or life in one way or another. And it was interesting to watch that. The 90s were a totally different time for substance abuse. And as JD points out at one point, Bev basically probably more than likely got hooked on pills through her work.
Yeah,
at one point. And but a lot of people fail to understand how easy it is to get hooked on pills and how you transition from pills to heroin. And we've talked about this. I don't think it's actually made it into a recording, but you and I have talked about this at length, about I've got history with pills, there's family history with pills. Fortunately, no one in my family has transitioned to heroin or anything like that. I've never dealt with that, but I've dealt with pills. I know pills. I know aspects of addiction, mostly just chemical dependency, but it gives you a different perspective on some of these things. And it's, there's not a lot of people, we're not breaking any ground in this conversation because so many people's lives have been affected by this at this point.
Yeah, so the framing story mostly concerns an ill-timed relapse of Bev during interview weeks at Yale Law School where JD's trying to get a summer internship, which could pay up to $30,000. And he needs that money for school.
Yeah.
And
because even with financial aid, his bill for the next semester is going to be, or the next year, $21,900.
Yeah. And so, his sister calls him and says, you got to come back. Mom's relapsed. She's in the hospital. We need to make arrangements for her and getting her into a rehab program again. And Lindsay, the sister, is a soccer mom. And when all this stuff is going on, she's like, I still got roped into, I have to host this party for the soccer kids and stuff. And so they're at the party, and he meets with some of his friends. I think it's the two friends from earlier in the 97. And then
I didn't catch that, but you might be right.
That might be, or maybe there's someone else. But anyway, so they're talking about getting his mom into rehab, and everybody in this small group is like really versed in, this is a drug rehab center, don't go to this one. This one's good, the food's bad here. And it's surreal, but it's real,
they also have the connection there. They're like, oh, can you call so-and-so?
Yeah. It's like, so-and-so at such and such a place.
Yeah.
Maybe they can pull a string, get her in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there comes a moment where you wonder whether JD's going to make it back for his interview because we're literally getting to a matter of minutes of he has to drive straight through the night. And even at that, he may not make it to his interview.
Sleep. Like he hasn't slept in 48 hours.
Yeah. And, and if he doesn't leave within a matter of minutes, there's no hope of him making it back in time for his interview. And he, of course, makes it back for the interview. We don't know. We're not told what happened with the interview. But he makes it back to for the interview. But that's also kind of a turning point, or seems, the way the story is told, it seems to become a turning point in the family's life because Bev asks JD to stay.
Yeah.
And he tells her, look, I love you. I want you to be happy. I want you to get healthy. I want to, do this.
He has this
but I can't stay.
I'm not saving anyone here.
Yeah.
And he goes back to that lesson from Mima about to save them, you have to save yourself. You have to rise above it. And he's like, I can do very little for you people, for my family in the short term. I have to go. I have to continue my career, and that is going to be to the long term, what this family needs long term.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's interesting as he's driving back, he has that conversation with Usha on the phone. Like, she decides, I'm going to keep you company.
Yeah, keep you awake while you drive.
And they compare some of the similarities of their family story and her dad having come to the United States and, things like that. It's
the universality of that.
There's elements that are universal and there's elements that are different, and, it's interesting. But, this film had me hooked. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I was really quite impressed by this film. Hans Zimmer teamed up with David Fleming, and they produced a good score for this movie. I really enjoyed that. It seemed on point throughout this movie.
The script was by a woman.
So J.D. Vance wrote the book, and Vanessa Taylor adapted it for the movie.
It's a solid screenplay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna have to add this book to my list of books to read.
Yeah, it makes me kind of curious about it.
Yeah, for sure. And this movie was nominated for 2 Oscars. Do you remember which 2?
Glen Close was nominated for Best Actress. And in a weird thing that I don't know if it's ever been replicated, she also got a Best Supporting Actress Razzie nomination for this.
Did she really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I can kind of see it because it's a kind of character that it's hard for it not to stray into caricature.
Yeah.
And self-parody.
Yeah.
Which it does occasionally, but I feel like the core of that character rang true to me.
Yeah. The second Oscar nomination was for Best Achievement in Makeup and Hairstyling.
Okay.
Evidently, Glen Close's nose and ears for this took an hour to apply each day, and then her wig took an additional 30 minutes.
And she looks remarkably like the woman she's playing from the photographs.
So the glasses that she wears in this movie, those are actually Mama's frames.
Oh, wow.
Those are her frames. The family was heavily involved, evidently, in the production of this film, and they were on set at various times, but they lent Mama's frames to the production to be used in filming.
Yeah.
So those are legitimately Mama's frames. They were on set, and I guess at one point when they came on set one day and saw Glen Close in costume, they all were overcome because, there was their Mama. You want some additional trivia?
Sure. You know, Rob, everyone in life is one of three type of people.
Yeah.
The good Terminator, the bad Terminator, and neutral.
Yeah.
Mima, how many times have you seen that movie? Like 100? Yeah. Why do you keep watching it? I like it.
Yeah. Glen Close speaking about playing this role, when the author's family was on set, when they broke down after seeing her in character in a particular scene, that's when Glen Close knew that she had nailed the performance. Yeah. So, while Usha is talking to JD on the phone while he's driving home, those are the pictures in the apartment, the photos around her apartment are the real Usha and her family are on the refrigerator and in picture frames in the background.
Amy Adams and Haley Bennet, mother and daughter, with just 14-year age gap between them, the real Bev Vance had her first child, daughter Lindsay, when she was 19 years old.
Yeah. It seems pretty accurate in the movie.
And there is a sister. Bev has a sister that isn't really a part of the movie. We see her briefly in flashback. She might have been at the family reunion in Kentucky, but she's not really central.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be curious to know more about what came of her.
So, as they were preparing for this film, the production company had a list of popular cuss words and insults that Mama Bonnie regularly used, and they were submitted to the production company by the family. However, some of those were, while being popular behind the scenes, were determined to be too much for public consumption. So this is a tamed down.
So if you're ever having a long conversation with Ron Howard at night after drinking, ask him.
Yeah. Amy Adams and Glen Close, between the two of them, at the point that this movie came out, there's 14 Academy Awards between the two, or nominations. Between the two of them.
Glen Close has never won.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of sad.
Yeah. Nurse Vivian is played by Ron Howard's wife, Cheryl Howard, who can be glimpsed 37 minutes into the film behind a reception desk at the hospital where Bev is first admitted. She has no dialogue, but Ron always puts her in his movies because she is his lucky charm.
Aww.
Yeah, you mentioned this. Glen Close becomes only the third person to get an Oscar nomination and a Razzie nomination for the same performance.
The others being James Coco for Only When I Laugh, 1981, and Amy Irving for Yentl, 1983.
Yeah. I think that's probably about all that is worth mentioning out of this. Solid film, though. This surpasses its reputation, I believe. I would recommend this pretty broadly to people. It sounds like we're pretty well in the same camp, similar opinions on this. So,
which leads us to the ranking of the movies.
Oy. This is going to be
not
tough.
The way I thought it would go.
How did you anticipate this would go going into the movie?
I anticipated that I would probably love Backdraft and hate this thing.
Uh-huh.
And it was close to reverse.
Yeah.
Did you want to give your rankings, or did you want
I am trying to finalize my rankings right now. I would probably say I'm really torn whether I think Rush is better or Hillbilly Elegy. I think Rush is probably more universal, so I'm going to probably put Rush on top, Hillbilly Elegy second. Actually, The Paper is third, and Backdraft is the bottom of the four for me this month.
I'm rating things exactly the same.
Really?
Yeah, Rush first,
I think this
Hillbilly
is the first time we've
Elegy,
been exactly the same, isn't it?
The Paper and Backdraft. I think we did the same once before, maybe twice, but it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. I mean, we're usually close, but yeah.
And Rush and this one are really close. It could really go either way.
Yeah.
And maybe because Rush was... I was talking to my mom about it afterwards. Like, this is a movie my dad would have loved. Like, Rush was a dad movie, and it was just satisfying. And this is satisfying in its way, Hillbilly Elegy, but it's much more taxing, and it's kind of rough. I don't know if I would say I really enjoyed watching it, but there was some meaningfulness to
Here's
it.
a question for you about Hillbilly Elegy. Do you think it requires having a little bit of regional awareness of this area to fully enjoy?
I think it's a different experience if you know the area.
Yeah.
But and again, I'm looking forward to seeing what the critics said, what their problems were with it. But I can see, if you're not familiar with the area, you think that this is just, that's not real. It's like this is a caricature, and it's just too much. And it kind of is, but some of these people are too much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like this is a we've met the people they're just drama. Their life is always drama. These families. It rang true.
Cool. Yeah. Anything else to add on this movie?
No, I would.
Anything else to
recommend.
add on this theme month?
This was good. I should watch more Ron Howard films. I've been meaning to, off of the podcast, just haven't really gotten around to yet.
Yeah. I'm really impressed with Ron Howard. Even Backdraft being the weakest of what we watched, that was not a horrible movie.
No.
Like I said, Apollo 13 has long been one of my favorite movies. He just has an understanding of human nature and how to translate that onto screen. Probably his weakest attempt at that might have been How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and even then he gets the human element of it to a certain extent, but yeah, how do you put the human element in Jim Carrey in a crazy costume? But yeah, I've got a lot of respect for Ron Howard, especially after this month. I'm really glad we ended up doing a Ron Howard theme month. So, was this my idea or yours?
Oh, this was your idea.
Yeah. I don't even remember. I don't think we had...
Because I generally am the one that go the director theme months.
Yeah. Well, but I think I wanted to put a director theme month in, but...
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyways. Well, I'm Rob.
I'm Nate.
And this is Rob and Nate Record a Podcast. Yeah, I wonder how much that regional awareness factors into liking this movie. And again, maybe some of that will become apparent through reading reviews, but like if you haven't seen some of this stuff firsthand, can you fully appreciate it?
So the sequences where they go into Middleton, Middleborough, or whatever.
Yeah.
The early sequence where they're going in the 1940s, and the town is thriving, and there's the theater is open, and it's got all the things,
Cleveland,
and the buildings are being put up, and then you cut to 97, and it's run down, and then you cut to 24/11, and it's Shitville. Yeah, I mean, it's the story of so many towns.
Yeah, yeah. You heard the old joke about Cleveland, Virginia, didn't you?
No. Cleveland, Tennessee?
No, Cleveland, Virginia, which was in it's in Russell County. It was in the Lebanon area.
All right.
So Cleveland was the first city in the United States to revoke its own township.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it was, like so many other areas in Southwest Virginia, it was coal mining.
Mm.
And you can drive through the towns, and there's abandoned movie theaters, there's abandoned schools, everything. Just at the time that we were there, overgrown with kudzu and, so on and so forth. But there was when we got to Cleveland, or when I was in Cleveland in 2001, yeah, that's right, they had just barely gotten the ability to pay for gas at the gas station with a credit card. Now, when I say in 2001 they'd gotten the ability to pay for gas at the gas station, we're talking you went inside, somebody put down a piece of paper, transfer paper on top of it, and they literally, prior to, it was the month before I arrived in the Lebanon area, the mission office was still mailing cash to the missionaries to pay for gas.
Wow.
Because you couldn't pay for gas at the gas stations with a card. So, but there was a joke when I was there that Cleveland was 20 years behind, and so there was a joke that there's a report that a nuclear bomb is on its way, and a reporter's interviewing two guys, and she asked the first guy, "What are you going to do?" And he says all the things he's going to go run home and do with his wife and family and things and blah blah blah. she turns to the other guy and says, "What are you going to do?" And he says, "I'm going to Cleveland, Virginia. They're 20 years behind." So, yeah. But yeah, Cleveland, Virginia was the first city in the United States to revoke its own township because it had lost so much population. And you want to talk about some of the stuff, seeing that firsthand. It was in Russell County, Virginia. We had a lady. I remember going to PLC and telling them we had a commit.
Yeah.
And we had a nurse that was the Relief Society president, and she goes, "I'm sorry, elders, that's never going to work." And, we got that type of stuff commonly, and I was like, "What do you mean, blah, blah, blah?" She goes, "No, you don't understand. She's the number one most wanted on the DEA's list for this region."
Oh.
Oh.
Well.
I feel like I should turn this on.
Okay, I feel like I should turn it back on. I won't do the whole thing, but I'll do part of it. The song I wrote when I was in Big Stone.
I can edit this if you want, but I want to hear the whole thing.
So it's based on John Denver's Take Me Home Country Roads, but it's about Big Stone Gap, Virginia. Take me home, country roads, this ain't the place I belong. I gotta go back a minute. Almost Hebron, Southwest Virginia. You call these mountains, what's with the water? Things are old here, older than dirt. All this country music making my head hurt.
Yeah? How long did it take you to come up with that?
A couple days.
Why doesn't that surprise me?
Still in my brain after 21 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Moonshining country.
Oh. I was thinking about the movie we watched last week, Rush.
And
the guy gets in that massive car accident and talks about in the press conference how they had to take some skin from his thigh, put it on his forehead. And he said, well, thigh doesn't sweat, so I won't sweat on my forehead, and that's good for a racer. And I was thinking about that, and I'm like, that would suck. One of the great pleasures in life is sweating from your brow. I would miss it.
That's one way to look about it.
When it's hot, there's nothing more satisfying.
I don't know if I've ever...
than water condensing from inside of you.
I don't know if I'd call it
surface.
Satisfying, but...
No, I like it.
Do you?
I like some sweat on my brow.
When I was... My Uncle Howard, he taught us when we were kids. He's the one that owned his own HVAC company. And several of us worked for him at one point or another. And he taught us as kids, if you can't take your index finger, wipe it across your forehead and flip it at someone, you're not working hard. So that's the way I've always thought of sweat on my forehead.
So it has connotations of hard work, which I guess it does. Well, hot work or heat, like even just walking around in this summer of 2021.
Yeah, but that can be work.
Yeah, there's a certain satisfaction from the sweat.
There is satisfaction from sweat. But part of the reason I shave my head is I hate the feeling of sweat running through my hair.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.